Hi guys, my name is Autumn Melody Thomas, and first of all, I want to extend a huge thank you to everyone who's here today celebrating the 75th anniversary of the United Nations and helping to build a more secure world for future generations. I'm hugely grateful for the opportunity to speak here tonight and to contribute to the platform's workshop on cultivating a lasting culture of peace, as this issue is not only near and dear to my heart, but also as I've just spent the last several years completing a postgraduate research degree on the topic, and I've come to understand what an important tool education and simple conversation can be. Specifically, tonight I want to touch on the role that human rights plays in ensuring a more peaceful and secure world through the idea of positive peace and pre-conflict peace building at the structural level through my two initiatives listed below. I'll begin with a quick explanation of the important role that human rights plays in the peace and security of our world. The essence of human rights is to protect the individual. We do this by affording them not only basic necessities of survival, but the opportunity to thrive in a safe and habitable environment full of dignity and free from fear. If human rights are prioritized and preserved, civil unrest vanishes, backlash against governments quell, and the need for third-party humanitarian intervention is thwarted. Regardless of the resources that peacekeeping missions may bring or the accountability that international agreements aspire to bind states to, if the underlying cause of conflict remains at the local level, violence still remains a possibility. Therefore, the preservation of human rights remains paramount to cultivating a lasting culture of peace. The most sustainable way to eradicate conflict is to target the structural factors which cause the gravitation towards violence in the first place. By preemptively addressing systemic human rights grievances and violations, issues can be peacefully resolved at the source before they reach the point of erupting into violence. Early operationalizing of preemptive conflict prevention works towards an ideal environment of positive peace, in which elevated economic and societal outcomes, paired with a diminished number of grievances, lowers levels of violence and the will to resort to violence in the first place. Positive peace can be easily understood as a society that's free from the structural problems that would lead its citizens to resort to violent action. Or, in layman's terms, violence is rendered unnecessary because there are no issues to fight over. For example, if human rights are upheld, society is functioning well, and citizens are generally happy, a peaceful environment prospers naturally. So to create this environment free from conflict-igniting human rights violation takes first a clear and comprehensive understanding of what human rights means globally, what it takes to uphold these human rights, and how the international community is obligated to act when these rights become jeopardized. States must have an obligation to refrain from violations of internationally agreed upon human rights standards, and further, must act swiftly and decisively when violations arise before they have a chance to erupt into violence. The creation of this understanding and the will to engage in globally backed peacekeeping initiatives takes research, leadership, education, policy changes, and an overall normative will to triumph human rights as invaluable. So this brings me to my two proposals for the UN. First, I believe that we need UN-facilitated deliberative and diplomatic approaches to preemptive peace building through early identification of grievances and potentials for violent conflicts. We need to pair this with early local level outreach designed by international peacekeepers in tandem with local authorities to target the area's unique issues and needs. Secondly, I believe we need to expand accountability mechanisms to defend international human rights. Building on initiatives such as the responsibility to protect, UN member states must accountably bind themselves to upholding human rights standards, initiating unanimous international reactionary efforts when violations begin to occur, and cultivating a normative shift towards a culture that rejects human rights violations and the resort to conflict as a viable option. The UN Peacebuilding Commission is the best UN mechanism to take this proposal forward, and they must be afforded the support and resources to do so. If you're interested in learning more about the idea of positive peace or the role that human rights plays in peace and security, I personally recommend Tuba Turin's book on positive peace and Michael Harbottle's Peacekeeping, Peacemaking, Peacebuilding. Thank you all so much for listening, for your support of the UN, the UNA, and humanity as a whole.